It's not just for you. The gift is for other people. And if you stay other people focused, you won't focus so much on what you feel or what you didn't do or any of that kind of critical stuff.
Welcome to the Sing Confidently, Live Creatively podcast, a show to help you build confidence as you start singing, acting, dancing, and being creative again. Hi, I'm Estelle. I'm a singer, actor, performer, and beginner voice coach who knows how it feels to want to use your God-given creative gifts, but you stay stuck in fear and doubt. The solution is to start building confidence. You have gifts that you need to grow and use and share, and the world is waiting for you. I want to be there with you to help you do that. It's time to live creatively. So without further ado, let's begin. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the show. I'm so grateful that you're here joining me another day, another week. How was your weekend? How is it going? How are you feeling? Are you ready to start this new week? Do you feel like the weekend went fast? I kind of do personally. I need a longer weekend. I don't know about you guys, but anyway, I'm looking forward to this week though, and to the rest of this month actually, because I've been talking with a lot of you guys. I just want to say thank you for everyone who's listened to the show, anyone who reaches out, who is in the Facebook group, who reads the emails. It really means a lot to me to hear from you any moment that you have, like, to share something or to respond in some way. Like, it really means so much. So just always feel free to chat. Let's chat. I love hearing from you. I love talking to you. And one thing I'm really excited about is just being able to work with you more and really serve you in any way that I can when it comes to singing and building confidence and believing in yourself and believing that you have God-given creative talents that are worth expressing, that are worth taking time to develop and grow in and build confidence in when it comes to singing, when it comes to performing, when it comes to auditioning, doing these things that you love. Like, you know you love it. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening to this. So I just want to remind you that you are so loved and you are so gifted and you have creativity inside you that is worth being expressed and worth being shared and developed and grown, and you can build confidence in yourself, and it is all there for you. It's all available for you, and I'm here to just support you along the way and hopefully be along this journey with you. So, if you feel like you want more support in any way, or if there's any topic or question that you have that you would want more clarification on, my DMs are always open. Like, DM me at Creatively Performing Arts, and I would love to hear from you. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to message back and forth with you and get to know you more. It really would be amazing to just hear more from you. So feel free to reach out. Actually, I'm really excited because I'm starting to talk about this on my Instagram and stuff and Facebook group, but I have an upcoming free virtual workshop that is going to come very soon. There is an interest form that you can click below in the show notes right now. You can go and click there real quick and fill it out. It's just less than a minute to fill out the form. It's really, really quick. And it's gonna get you in the email list so that you can hear more about the workshop as it comes up, and also get to be in the running for giveaways that I'm going to be doing, so you can get some cool giveaways as well leading up to the workshop as well as in the workshop. And I'm really excited to host this. It's going to help you start building confidence when it comes to singing, when it comes to performing. And you guys have already started asking questions. I'm so excited for the responses that I've gotten already, and the questions that you're asking about allowing your authentic voice to emerge, about being confident when you're singing and overcoming stage fright and all these things. I literally I did a live on my Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, go follow Creatively Performing Arts so you can stay up to date with everything and connect with me more. I'd love to chat with you over there. But I did a live there last week answering, starting to dig into one of the questions, because I was like, I don't know if we're going to have enough time to answer all these questions in the workshop. So just in case, I'm trying to do some lives throughout these upcoming weeks to try to chat with you more. So go and follow me over there. I'd love to hear from you and hear that you heard about this show, or that you listened to the show and that you came over. It really means the world to me to connect with you. So just what a gift that would be to me. So and hopefully we could chat more and I could answer even more of your questions just one-on-one. Like if you have questions about singing and stuff and you feel like you've never really gotten to ask anyone, like just DM me. Like I'll literally answer it for you right then and there. So which is kind of cool. We can chat like that. I just want to make space for you to express your creative gift in singing. I want to make that space for you, and if you need that encouragement, you need that support, just reach out. In this time, this world that we're in right now, there's so much going on. There's so much pain and devastation and horrors in this world right now, and I just want to be that space for you to know that you can always come to this podcast, you can always come to this show, you can come to my Instagram, and always know that you will be seen, you'll be heard, you'll be supported, you'll be encouraged, and you're not alone. And I've done some episodes on that very topic because I know how important it is to hear that over and over and over and over again, and how important it is for you to know that you're supported, especially when you grew up singing and grew up performing and you're feeling like you're trying to come back to it, and it can be scary, right? It can be scary. There can be fear that comes alongside it. And I want you to know that you don't have to let fear be what guides you and what determines whether or not you take that step of courage to start singing and start, taking a voice lesson or joining this free workshop that's coming up, right? Don't let fear be the thing that stops you. Absolutely not. That's a non-negotiable. I will not let that be the thing that stops you. I want you to pursue that God-given, just using that God-given talent with everything that you are, as much as you possibly can, and in whatever way that you can, and don't let it sit by the wayside. Don't let it, don't toss it aside for one more moment. I need you. I want you to, I hope for you. That's my deepest desire, is that you will just start to embrace it, even in small ways. And that's what the show is here for, to help you do every single week. That is what I'm here for. That's what I want to help you with. And I hope you feel that support. Truly, I do. And so I'm excited for today's episode. I'm excited to get into it. Before I get into it, I do just want to ask that you go to that interest form. I would love for you to go and fill it out real quick and join us for this workshop coming up. I mean, you're really going to get questions answered. You're going to get a free coaching, an opportunity to just meet other creatives. Oh my gosh, other artists. Some of you guys are musicians. You have music that you're putting out. Like, literally come and collaborate with other artists. You can meet other people, and you can even share, like, maybe I'll do like an opportunity at the end for people to share their Instagram profiles, music that you've put out, so that other people, you can actually like share your music with other people. You can connect with other people, right? I want to create spaces for connection. That's why I have the performing arts community, the free community on Facebook that you can join, where you can literally share your music and stuff like that. Like I have days where you can share things that you're working on and stuff. So, and you can connect with other people, because we have to support each other in these artistic fields that we're in. And so, yeah, really take advantage of this opportunity to connect and build that community and build those connections with other artists who can support you as well. And I would just love to see you there. So go fill that interest form out. Do not delay. Do not put it off. Don't put it off one more moment. This is your opportunity to start building confidence as a singer and a performer. And so I'd love to see you there. Also, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and leaving a review below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please go ahead and leave a review. It really helps the show so much. Even if you just say, hey, I love this show, like simple, few words, 5-star review, or however many stars, it's up to you. But you can just put like a quick word in there, just a couple words. It doesn't have to be elaborate unless you want it to. Talk about what this show has meant to you, if it's impacted you in one way or another. I mean, I would love to hear that from you. It really would touch me a lot if you want to just give me that little gift today. But I would love for you to drop that below in the show notes or in the review. Just scroll all the way down to the bottom of Apple Podcasts, and there'll be a spot where you can leave a review. And I would love to see that. Okay, so I'm going to stop chatting. It's actually time for us to dive right into our interview today with Alan C. Paul, of the God and Gigs show. Alan is a musician. He's also a coach for creatives and author of the book God and Gigs, as well as Your Art, God's Heart. And he is all about helping to bridge the gap between creativity and values of faith and Christianity, and to really help people just build careers in the arts, right? He is a musician himself. He has had a career in the arts for years and years, and he helps other people build careers in the arts. So if you are interested in having a creative career, you definitely want to listen to this conversation, or even if you just want some inspiration to start being creative and start making music, starting to sing, starting to act, starting to play piano, or whatever it is, you're going to love this interview. He's going to get into his story of becoming a musician and starting God and Gigs Show, which is his podcast, which is reaching so many people and helping so many people become artists who are thriving and who are walking in their purpose. And so I love for you to just dig into this interview, really, really, really listen and really let it speak to your soul. I'm so excited. Without further ado, the one and only Alan C. Paul. All right, so I am back and I'm here with Alan Paul. Hi, Alan. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to talk about you as an artist and your artistry and just everything that you're doing. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Estelle. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Yes, I'm very excited. So we're just going to jump right into it. If everyone doesn't know who you are, if they don't know the God and Gigs Show, your podcast, if they don't know who is Alan C. Paul, I'd love for you to kind of give them. That's what it says on your email, by the way. So that's why I have to have the C in there too, Alan C. Paul.
Thank you.
So give them just the gist of okay, who you are, what you do as an artist, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for having me. I always lead when people say, "Oh, what are you all about?" And it's you're supposed to keep your life story in 30 seconds. But it's 4 words. I've tried to distill it down pretty simple. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a creative, and I'm forgiven. So, husband of one wife for 27 years, my wife Leah, who puts up with me for some reason, father of 3 kids, now all adults, creative, because God gave me this gift to express myself, whether it be music, art, writing, now podcasting, whatever it is, that's the way I express who I am, right? So it's not who I am as a creative, it's not all I am, but it's how I express it. And the last one is forgiven, because Jesus has saved me and given me a new lease on life that I get to live out in grace every day. So that's a nutshell. Author, creative, God of Gigs, all that stuff kind of comes after those 4 words, right? It goes under the creative side, but that's really who I am, and that's why I love to share with other creatives and just help us live this life out in a more fulfilled way.
Yes, and you do a really great job of that. I'm really excited to get into all the ways that you do that, but I love that way that you described yourself. That's really good. It's very it's not just one section of your life. You gave a really good, it's a very balanced, what's the word that I'm looking for? Thorough, just whole. It's a very whole life that you're describing, which is really good and really great for artists, I think, to see that it's possible to, have, the really beautiful home life and those really great relationships and friendships and, home, that beautiful home, and still have your art as well, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Going into your story a little bit, and then of course, being saved and having that relationship with God and letting that guide your creativity, which we'll get into as well. But going into your story a little bit, because you said that you are a creator, you love to express yourself in these different ways, right? Creatively. So how did you know that? When did you first discover that, oh, I have these creative gifts? And then what made you decide to actually pursue them? What made you decide to actually start to grow them and to develop them?
This is a great question, because I think a lot of times people assume, and to me too, they'll say things like, I know you probably heard this too, oh, well, when did you start to play? Or when did you start to sing? And it's the assumption is, well, there's this magic fairy dust that falls on you at some point. I don't remember a time without music, simply because it was always around me. My mom was a music teacher. She says I started to play at the age of 2 or 3. I used to reach up and try to touch the keys and then growing up in church. So I think the music was always the way I expressed myself, simply because it was what other people express themselves, like to me and around me, and the church choirs and things like that. So I would say the piano was probably like my first inclination that, hey, this is what I'm going to probably do with my life. It doesn't mean again that I didn't have other things, but I love science, and I grew, did a lot of stuff in reading and just enjoyed life and learning. Like I've always been a very much a nerd. So I just wanted to be like, around like learning and information and doing cool stuff. But music was the thing that gave me the quickest like rush for all of those things. So whether it was band, jazz band in high school or whatever, that's what I really got, my creative, I guess, again, the inspiration from, because when I'm learning in band, what I was learning at choir, it always felt like, hey, this makes me feel like I'm needed, I'm important, I'm fulfilled, I'm challenged, right? And so I think as you become a professional or decide to become a professional, all those things get like enhanced. But it shouldn't take away the joy of when you're first a kid and I was playing recitals or whatever. Like I could still play my buzzing bee piece when I was like 5 years old or 7 years old. Like I still remember it. That's how like innate that becomes. Like when you have those experiences and you can still play the song you learned when you're 8 years old, it's because it was that powerful. And because that creative gift doesn't like, if you nurture it, it doesn't die, it just kind of just keeps bubbling up. So even if you don't do it professionally, you just can't get away from it. So that's what it's like for me. Like once I got to college, I realized that this is probably going to be my profession. But I think up to that point, I always knew it was going to be some part of my life.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love what you said about how that song stuck with you, like you can still play it now, because that's what I talk about so much on this show, and everyone who's listening will know that it's like you probably grew up singing. Like if you're listening to this so many times, you were in choir when you were younger, you did theater, you were in band, for instance, like in your case, you have this inclination to express yourself through music, through the performing arts, through some creative outlet, because you had some experience with it when you were younger. And a lot of times you get away from it because, like you were saying, maybe you don't nurture it as much, or people around you didn't nurture it, and then you get away from it. And then eventually you're like, but you still have this desire to do it. Like it still keeps bubbling up the way that you said it, right? And you can't get away from it. And so even if you want to do it as a creative outlet, whether it's a career, a creative outlet, or hobby, it doesn't matter. It's still worthwhile. It's worth pursuing, because you can just hear from your story how much joy it brings you, how you talked about feeling needed, feeling challenged when you were, playing and engaging in music. And so many people want that know that they are needed, know that they have something to give to people, but then don't realize that it's, like it's this creative gift that you have, like use it, do something with it. You never know who can be impacted by it and how it can also bring you so much joy too. And so I just love that you talked about how you just knew that it would always be in your life because you grew up with it, you grew up having that, and you experienced the joy and everything that came with it. So from there, did you study music in college? You said you realized you were going to do it professionally in college.
Yes, I did. I got to University of Miami and went ahead and did my music education degree. And had jazz emphasis. I started classical piano. I actually studied classical all the way through to high school, and did a couple of semesters at Interlochen up in Michigan, and realized, no, actually one semester up in Interlochen, or a summer camp. And that was about the time that I was realizing, these classical musicians, this is hard. And not only hard, but I was also starting to hear jazz. I was introduced to a Miles Davis record. When I remember in my living room, or my brother's, my brother had this project, and we were all doing the project, and he was asleep. And I remember I was so mad because he was asleep. But while we were doing his project, we heard this jazz coming through. So I thanked my brother for not doing his project, because I never would have heard jazz. So in Interlochen, I started realizing, like, wow, I started sneaking across the road to hear the jazz, and I would sneak away from my classical teachers. So that just continued in college. I started 1 year in college, classical, snuck upstairs to the jazz school, and eventually started jazz. So yeah, I studied all the way through University of Miami, got my bachelor's in music ed with jazz emphasis in piano. And again, it wasn't that, music education was the other side, was the teaching side. That was always part of it. So I did not necessarily want to be a professional in terms of like pursuing a performance career only. I wanted it to be something where I was always, sharing it. And so I went to elementary. I love teaching elementary. I've taught adults. I've taught toddlers. I mean, it's just whatever place where I can like be a part of that world. That's what it has. But then, of course, the professional side and performing started calling my name later. But that wasn't so much later that I even started doing gigs. That's a whole other story.
When you started doing gigs, what were you doing like at that moment, and what was that spark that was like, I need to start performing again? That that next step to say like, okay, I need to feel challenged in this way when it comes to performing. Why did you start to do gigging?
This is sometimes I don't want to tell this part of the story because it's almost like, when you have to go back to the testimony, you have to tell all the negative side, all the stuff that you don't want to talk about, but that gives God glory to tell the testimony. So I didn't play secular music basically or any kind of gigs after leaving college. I had a little R&B band for about 2 years. We went to Nashville. We won a regional competition for a talent show. We went to Anaheim. And lost to a R&B band. It was 6 of us in this real band. We played our own music. I wrote the music. It was like we thought we were the bee's knees, and we got beat by an R&B group that just kind of like did some tracks. And I was so disappointed. And I just kind of like walked away from performance. So I was playing in my church and I was teaching, but gigging or playing, I was just like, this is not the life for me. Plus I had a young family and it was like, this is just not going to work. So it was almost 8 to 9 years later still that it was me at my church, because long story short, I had to kind of congeal a couple of things, but I left my school, resigned, started teaching started working at my church full time. And about 3 years into that, God started giving me like inclinations that I don't want you here. And I want you to be doing something else. I had no idea what that was. And the end of that story is I resigned from my ministry position, which is crazy. With no job, by the way. I resigned with no other job. I was like, what? I don't know why my wife didn't realize I was crazy and kicked me out right then. But it was that time I was like, okay, well, I guess if I'm not full-time in church and I'm not full-time teach, I guess there's only the other one skill I have, and that's gigs. So I ended up playing for $50 a day or $50 a night at this blues club off in the side. And it was desperation, basically, is what I'm saying. Desperation, and the fact that I knew I had a degree in this performance, and I was like, I'm not using it. I just assumed that God or whatever religious reason I was giving myself was I wasn't supposed to play it. And all of a sudden it was like, well, yes, I'm supposed to do it because I learned how to do it and I should be doing it. And so it was really that weird kind of, why am I not using this gift kind of thing? And I just started playing gigs again, open mics again. And then eventually I started, maybe I can do a couple of things with my friends. And then we started doing top 40 stuff. And it's like, this whole world opened back up because I had shut the door. Nobody else did. I had shut the door on this side of my music. And it was really nobody's fault but my own. And I say again, carefully, it doesn't mean that I should have been performing the entire time. I'm glad I had the experiences I had. I'm glad I was kind of not out in the road touring and stuff, because I had it, like I said, my wife and my kids, I was really home most of the time, except for, doing basically church things. So I'm glad I wasn't like out there doing stuff, but the gig and the performance came right at the right time where I said, hey, I got to push myself in another direction. And that's how it happened. And, the rest really came. That's how God and gigs and everything else came, because I entered that world and let that gift, try to explore it again.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I know, like you said, you have to get the good without the bad when it comes to, like the testimony when it comes to the story. But I think it's really important for us to hear like how that actually started for you. Because there are people listening who also know that they have a gift, and then they're just, maybe they've got a degree in it, and maybe they've just kind of like set it to the side, haven't had time for it. Maybe they just have always wanted to start singing or playing music or playing piano, writing songs, right, but just never really made time for it. But you, in the season, that you were in that moment of desperation, as you say, you decided to take that step, take that leap of faith, and like go for it and put yourself out there, which is really not easy to do. And then now you're inspiring so many other people to do the same thing, but not just in like a very like, okay, like just, start doing gigs or whatever. But you're using your background, from what I can see, you're using your background in education as well as your experience doing gigs and performing, and putting that together to then share with other people how they can actually do this thing, whether it's as a career or as a side hustle, and, perform and even make money from it, build businesses as artists, as performers. How does, before you get into like God and gigs and everything with the podcast, but how did your experience with like education and being a teacher, teaching music and everything, how did that translate into like you wanting to now like inspire other people to perform? Like, was that because you were inspiring other people to perform, right? As a teacher, you were helping people start performing. Yeah.
That's a great connection. I did kind of think about it. I never thought of it when you just said it until you just said it just now in that way.
Yeah.
That when I was a teacher, I always felt that my goal was to inspire the next generation of either music creators or music consumers. That was always my goal, because I was dealing with a lot of elementary kids. It's like, okay, we're not going to be Bachs and Beethovens, and I'm not trying to create a whole bunch of music prodigies. That's not what they're there for. It was general music. But I realized at that young age, I was able to kind of form their love of just being in the space of being musical, right? And so I understood that was my job. Not necessarily just to make the musicians, right? And so I think the way it translates is that I've always felt I have the gift and the desire to teach and to help people see what they're capable of. And that part absolutely translated. I remember when I first wrote the notes for God and Gigs, and it wasn't going to be a book, it was going to be a pamphlet. And I literally came up on Facebook, my memories like just today. And I just wrote down like 5 or 6 little ideas of other people that were doing this, that were gigging. And I was like, well, how are they doing this? Well, someone needs to know. Someone needs to hear how they go to church and play in these things and they don't feel like they're conflicted. Somebody needs to know how they make a living. And I need it. So a lot of the teaching desire comes from, if I need it, somebody else needs it. You know what I mean? So that's where I see that gift, and the desire to teach always comes from being less selfish and more selfless. I have to give something to somebody else. If it's information, if it's inspiration, it belongs to someone else. And so whether it's a podcast or writing, my job is to give away what I have, or to connect that person with someone else who has what they need. So that's really why I think that through line exists. So I'm glad you brought up that connection.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And I'd love for you to teach people right now a little bit, kind of like apply those gifts of yours, because you said you want to, which you're doing all the time anyway, but you said that what you did as a teacher is you help people, or you help those kids, learn to like appreciate music and everything. And so here, as listeners, are some of them, have that appreciation for music and the arts, but don't see that gift inside themselves. And you yourself said, you always knew that you had this gift, and it was something that needed to be given. So talk to people right now, talk to us right now about how can we like know that we have this gift and actually start putting it out there? Like, what are those first steps to starting to perform, starting to sing, starting to act, starting to do theater, dance, play an instrument? What would you say? Like, okay, how would you encourage people to go for it?
Well, I love this question because this always brings me back, and is where it gives me a chance to put my wife out there. So I always like to put my wife out there with this example, because my wife is a singer. She is a creative, but she's not a professional. This is why I have to draw myself away from my world, because my world is, I do this professionally. Meanwhile, my wife went to school with me. She studied voice, but she decided not to become a singer, right? Like a professional singer. But I always look at my wife, and I've told her this many times. People have begged her to do a CD. people have begged her to do an EP. She's always like, no, but other people who are Grammy winners and people who have been on tours, all of our greatest best friends have told her she has the gift. And that's the first thing I'll tell somebody. Be careful of evaluating your own gift by your own standard. A lot of times we think we're not ready because we've told ourselves we're not ready. Meanwhile, there are other people in your life that are telling you, hey, I want to hear you. I want to see this happen in your life. So you have to be very, very aware that sometimes we're our own worst critic and we can talk ourselves out of going for what we can do because we've simply made ourselves think that no one else wants to hear it. Meanwhile, you might have people in your family, people in your church, people in your school, people in your workplace, and you'll be at a karaoke bar. They were like, girl, why aren't you? Let those people be kind of like the people that kind of keep you from dismissing your own dream or dismissing your own talent. Now, the second part, I mean, you know this very well, Estelle, is you got to give yourself the chance to learn. Give yourself the chance to take small bets and small wins, like taking a class, like singing at an open mic. Things that don't necessarily cost a lot of money or they don't cost you a lot of self-esteem. You're not scared that everyone's going to hate you. You're not spending a lot of money on like producing an album or joining a play the first time. You take some small steps, small bets, but then start exercising. And the third thing I would say for someone is absolutely 100% celebrate those small wins and do not critique yourself on the small steps you take, because every step you take is going to be kind of like a stumble, right? It's going to be like, oh, well, that didn't sound quite right. Oh, that painting didn't come out quite right. And of course, because you're kind of, we talked about this in a recent conversation, you're beginning again, right? It's like the very word begin, like it has again kind of already in the word, right? So you're beginning again and again and again and again, but that's okay. So I want to make sure people who are starting don't, again, talk themselves out of the process, because at the beginning you are going to feel a little bit like a fish out of water. But like you said, many times these are gifts that maybe inside you just haven't exercised them. So just like anything else, it takes the practice, it takes some of the boring stuff. But be willing to celebrate. Take yourself out for a reward at every point that you finish a class, or that you did the open mic, or that you sang the song, or you wrote the song, or you showed up at the church choir. Whatever you did, celebrate those things and remind yourself that, you know, you're taking one step closer to what really amounts, again, for other people. It's not just for you. The gift is for other people. And if you stay other people focused, you won't focus so much on what you feel or what you didn't do or any of that kind of critical stuff.
Yes, so good. Thank you so much for breaking it down so well. And what you ended on just now, just re-emphasizing that it's not about you. Like, yes, you should, and you do, and you will, and you should experience so much fulfillment and joy from using that gift, because it's something that God has given you and he wants you to use it. But at the same time, like, there are so many people who can and will be impacted by you sharing your talent, sharing your gift. And when you focus on them, it takes off some pressure from you. I love that you emphasize that.
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of my conversation with Alan Paul of the God and Gigs podcast. Go to the show notes to go ahead and listen to his podcast in the meantime, and to learn more about being a full-time paid artist and creativity and so many things while you wait for our conversation, the rest of our conversation, to come out next week. I'm so grateful that you took the time to listen. I know your time is so valuable, and I hope you have an amazing week. I hope this inspired you, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode and to this show. I'm so in awe of you for being here and showing up for your creative gifts. That takes courage. Don't forget to join the Performing Arts community on Facebook for support and inspiration as you continue on your journey. If this episode helped or inspired you in any way, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and share it with someone. It means so much. Thank you again, and don't forget to keep singing, acting, dancing, performing, and living creatively. Talk to you next time.